Joining me today with my colleague John Marler, who is a ESG Director for Ingram Micro. Hi, John.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And you?
Good.
Glad to hear. So, to begin, John, what is ESG all about?
So, ESG is all about a number of issues that impact corporate citizenship. Um, it is ensuring that companies are living up to their stated values and commitments, and also introducing the data and information that shows that they're pursuing their targets and making progress on a number of issues from environmental sustainability to human rights to worker health and well-being.
Okay, is there any area within ESG that Ingram Micro has more in focus than another?
So I would say no, for the simple reason that when we talk about ESG and the issues that global companies like Ingram face these days, we're talking about hundreds of discrete issues and everything from corporate governance to environmental sustainability to community health, worker health, and customer health. But that said, we have a process here at Ingram Micro, like a lot of other global companies, called a materiality assessment. And that's where, every few years we survey our stakeholders to find out what issues in the ESG world are most relevant to them, that they care the most about and impact them the most. And so while, like I said, we try to take all of these issues seriously, what our stakeholders seem to keep coming back to and what we notice are the two highest priority issues for our stakeholders are carbon emissions and climate change, and diversity, equity, inclusion, and advancing the cause of neglected demographics across the world.
Yeah. I know that we recently released our new ESG website, and on that we can read about 10 to 0, our goals for 2030. Why 10 to 0? And can you give any example of initiatives that would be included?
So 10 to 0 is based on a number of viewpoints from the United Nations and other stakeholders that this period from 2020 to 2030 is really the global community's last chance to save the ship, so to speak. Global climate change is causing severe and global impacts for personal health and property. And we have a number of governance and human rights issues around the world. So 2030 is also the year that the UN Sustainable Development Goals are supposed to wrap, and we're supposed to achieve the goals across the 17 different sustainability development goals. And so we were inspired by that to basically put a challenge on ourselves as an Ingram Micro and a global community to achieve some landmark goals by 2030 to line up with this decade of action. And so for us, 10 to 0 is achieving zero carbon emissions, zero operational waste, and zero safety incidents by 2030 in our global operations. And while I say that, those goals align to, again, some of our most material issues when it comes to ESG, but it's certainly not exhaustive in terms of our goals around other ESG metrics, like our commitment to good corporate governance, our commitment to advancing women and other minorities in our workforce and in our executive ranks, and other metrics that we report out annually in our ESG report.
Wow. Yeah, they are significant goals, I think. Social is a big area within ESG, and I know that in our communication we say protecting the planet protects people. So actually, what it all comes down to are the people. How does Ingram Micro work when it comes to our employees' safety and well-being?
Mm-hmm. So I want to emphasize that point a lot. ESG, environment, social governance, definitely those are the letters and the words that describe the general subject matter. But to me, the S is really about people. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to accomplish in ESG is all about people, whether they work for our company or they're in our stakeholder communities. And so with respect to our employee community and safety and health and well-being, I would say our two prominent initiatives are our commitment to safety, so basically driving to zero safety incidents by 2030, as I mentioned. And then also health and well-being, particularly in this time after we all suffered through a global pandemic. And there's other global issues that are of great concern out there. Our mental health and physical well-being is more important than ever. And we have our employee assistance programs that are available to our global employee communities so that they can get the resources they need to make sure that they're keeping on top of their personal health and mental well-being.
Yeah, that sounds really good. But I mean, we are in the IT industry. It's a very product focused industry, and we are a distributor. What do you see like the most challenging thing working with ESG within IT industry as a distributor?
So I think the biggest challenge for us as a distributor is that the impacts that are most material to our business are outside of our direct control. And I'll use our carbon emissions inventory as an example. So if you look at our direct carbon emissions, which are so-called Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, those are related to the actual operations of our physical footprint. Those are on the order of about 69,000 metric tons of emissions per year based on our calendar year 2021 emissions. But if you look at our Scope 3 inventory that measures all the emissions in our supply chain, from the sourcing of the minerals and the construction of hardware to the delivery of those to the customers, the use of the customers, and then the end-of-use disposition of those materials, we're talking almost 100 million metric tons. So our biggest challenge as a distributor is that while we work with thousands of vendors globally, it's very hard for us to directly influence their practices to make sure that they're reducing their waste, reducing their carbon emissions. But the good thing is that because it's such an integrated supply chain, we have lots of really good partnerships with our vendors and with our customers. And so we're working in collaboration with them to make sure that we're all tracking these issues and staying on top of them. And while I use carbon emissions as an example, this also extends to social issues like human rights and making sure that we're not using conflict minerals in the devices that we're sourcing, and that there's no forced compulsory labor or child labor in our supply chains, both within our operations and upwards in our supply chain from our vendors and suppliers.
Okay. Before we wrap this up, do you have any other message or greetings you want to send out to our listeners?
So yes, the first would be a greeting. What's really exciting to me about working for Ingram Micro is that we cover 90% of the world's population, and we're active in over 61 countries. And so it's very exciting to have that global audience and to affect change on that scale. And then the second thing I would say is that, as I mentioned, our ESG program is all about people at the end of the day. We're trying to protect people, keep them safe, make sure that they have a healthy lifestyle and standard of living, and that we're all living in balance with the earth and its resources. And so what I would say is that as you look at our program and its evolution, we're definitely going to be addressing Ingram's direct impacts because it's our responsibility to take accountability and action on those impacts. But we also want to affect change with our stakeholders. And so we hope that when you look at our program and some of the things that we're doing and trying to accomplish, that inspires you to take action in your own life to affect change. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to accomplish these big goals on such a narrow time frame if we're not all taking our own actions and accountability to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's a really good wrap up, I would say. Thanks a lot, John, for joining us today.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me.